All right, here we are, Brendan Wall with GameItAll.com with another edition of Film Talk. We have Jody Wheeler and Steve Parker, the team behind the newish, right?
Newish, yes.
Not completely new. Yeah, newish film, The Dark Place. Before I get going into too many questions here, I just want to ask. Now, how can someone get a hold of that? That's on demand right now, right?
It's on demand. It's on it's on demand. It's on iTunes, Amazon, Vimeo, and a few other platforms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
You
go ahead.
can visit thedarkplacemovie.com, and it will show you all the different ways you can get it.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. TheDarkPlaceMovie.com, and that will give you all the necessary links if you want to purchase the video on demand for The Dark Place.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So just first things first. Start with Jody and then Steve, I guess. Just tell me about kind of your early beginnings and how you got kind of inspired to start making films.
Well, I was born in a log cabin by the sea. No. I guess I'd always enjoyed watching, reading stories, watching stories on TV, and somewhere along the line I realized that you can do that yourself, and it was kind of a long process, but between writing for some local television when I was younger and making some short films, and I was able and writing scripts and making short films, I worked my way up to actually going back to school and getting a degree in screenwriting and film production from UCLA, and that finally I was off to the races and was able to sell some scripts and set up some financing and funding and actually make feature films. And Steve, I met Steve on the set of another film that I produced, Judas Kiss, and he and I hit it off and decided to bring The Dark Place to life.
Okay, and Steve, what was your kind of background before to get you started?
Well, my film school was the theater seat. I spent many years watching an average of about 100 to 150 feature film programs a year. And after about a decade of that, I actually had someone else, one of my friends had to point it out to me, but I'd watched a new film, and I'd launched into a critique of the film, and it included, I remember very specifically, it included breaking down the opening credits and saying, they're showing you already how they're going to treat these characters by how this is structured. And one of my friends turned to me when I said that and said, Steve, you want to make movies. And I spent the next couple of weeks in shock. And after that, I went looking around San Francisco where I live and found Film Arts Foundation, a filmmakers cooperative. And the next thing I knew, I had rented a 16-millimeter Bolex camera and gotten some of my friends to stand in front of it and was making a music video. And I've kind of never looked back. I actually have a day job as a software engineer for an extremely popular smartphone. And this is actually something I do because both filmmaking and high-tech software, they're demanding, driven kind of things, and I love them.
Awesome. Yeah, you gotta love those old Bolex cameras, eh?
It was quite an adventure. It was an adventure I only had once. They're expensive and they're cute, but I love making movies with the digital cinema tools that we have today, and I've never looked back.
Yeah, for sure. I don't blame you. So now, as it pertains to the Dark Place, would you just describe just briefly the plot of the film?
Basically, it's a mystery thriller. It's about a young man who's estranged from his widowed mother, who returns home and after a 2-year break, and discovers that his mom has remarried. He's got a new stepfather, stepbrother, and they, unbeknownst to his mom, they're after the family wine estate, the profitable wine estate, and he's the only one who's picked up on this, and it's up to him kind of to save the day, to save his wine estate and business, but mostly just to save his mom. And the mystery kind of unfurls out from there, and the thrills kind of unfurl out from there.
Awesome. Now I know you said you put together the script and everything, but how did the idea of that particular story come to you?
A couple of different fronts. It was one of the first stories that I pitched in Hollywood about 10, 12 years ago. But it was also, I think the first idea was, what would Sherlock Holmes have been like, if he was 19, 20, 21, 22, and then, that's kind of been done before, but it then kind of, you started taking on different aspects. It's what if you're the only one who can see what's actually going on in your family? What if you're not on great terms with your family and you've kind of got to rise to the occasion to fix the relationship and save the day? And then as things developed over the years, I found out about something called dysthymia, not dysthymia. That's something totally unrelated. Hyperthymesia, which is also called superior autobiographical memory, which, roughly speaking, is you're able to remember every detail from every day of your life. And I tweaked that a little bit to being basically your mind is like a video camera, and you remember everything. You remember every good moment, and you also remember every bad moment, every insult, everything that you did wrong, and everything somebody else did wrong. And that kind of played into, this can really put somebody at odds with their family, and it can also put somebody as being the only person who can start putting all the pieces together. And how are these two things going to interplay with each other? And boom, you just have this really intricate story then that has come from all of these pieces.
Okay. Yeah. No. I was going to say, I think that's the first time I had ever heard of that condition.
Yes.
And I didn't even know. At first I thought it was just for the film, and then I actually looked it up and found out that it was a real thing. I don't think I've ever seen a movie use it. So.
Yeah, it was really fun, and it was also really fun to discover that at the time I think that I wrote it, that there were only about 12 documented and confirmed cases. And of course I took, you take a little bit of liberties with it because it doesn't work exactly this way in real life, but it becomes a wonderful visual metaphor for what's going on inside the hero's head, and you have lots of opportunities to explore things in this in real time without cutting to flashbacks and all that kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, it's almost like an alternative, right?
Yes, it's great.
So on the producing side of things, how hard was it to get finances, investors, and all that stuff? Was it difficult on a film like this?
It was certainly some effort. I mean, I was actually one of the lead investors, and in a way that made it easier. It was a bunch of finding other people and saying, I think this is a really worthwhile project, and will you join me? But one of the things that helped was that, the story was incredibly tight, and it, from script to screen, this project was, I think, the easiest of any in many ways because the story was so tight. So I'm also the editor, and, usually you get into the editing room and there are a lot of things and you're kind of like, that scene, it just slows it all down. Or you have moments like that. And with this, the mystery is constructed so tightly that we just really didn't have any of that.
I think we left 3 minutes of the movie out, and mainly because there was one scene that just technically didn't work right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the pieces were there, and it was much more mature as a story than most scripts ever get to.
Now, I just wanted to bring it up because I found out also that, Jody, you had worked previously on a show called Inside Outside the Beltway.
Yes.
Back in the early 90s?
Yes.
Now, Yeah, just tell us a little bit about that, because that was a pretty groundbreaking show at the time.
Yeah, it was. It was probably one of the first LGBT drama series that was being done. I mean, it was actors in and around Washington D.C., Fairfax, Virginia, that put it together. And over the course of I think 5 years, we made about 31 episodes, and we sent them around. I think we were syndicated in about 12 or 15 cities around the United States. We were all taking advantage of public access cable at the time, but this wasn't $1.98 production values. I mean, we did a pretty decent size and pretty impressive show for this, and we did some soap opera tropes, we did some drama tropes and some comedy tropes, but made compelling stories where the lesbian and gay people were heroes, villains, and everything in between. We got written up everywhere from the United States to England. I think we were also a little too early to the cultural change that was coming, and so we never quite bumped to the next level. I think it was about we stopped, and I think it was about 5 years later that the UK version of Queer as Folk came out, and Will and Grace comes out sometime after that, and suddenly the world is rapidly changing in the media landscape. So it was really kind of cool. It was and it was kind of where I decided, oh, I can actually do this, and I actually understand this. And I do remember with that series, the very first time I stood in a crowded room and had people watch a scene that I had written and see these really good actors perform it on screen. It was uplifting, and I went, oh, now I understand why people get this in their blood and it never goes out.
Yeah, no, and the other reason I bring it up too, just in terms of like the question before about financing, you feel like this would have been a much harder film maybe to finance back at that time before the culture had sort of progressed, right?
Definitely, yes. And the really surprising thing is the digital technology was just starting. We actually shot Inside Outside the Beltway on high 8. Well, it was digital technology, but on high 8 video cams. But all the editing was done linearly and stuff. So you couldn't have done what we did today back then. You still would have been film. You still would have been film and trying to raise capital and getting things done that way. It wouldn't have worked.
And do you think with the content of the film, it would have been harder to raise money back then as well? Or
at that point in time, yes. I mean, most stories were either AIDS coming out stories or AIDS stories or coming out stories. And the thing about The Dark Place is, while the lead is gay and he takes his boyfriend along, I don't think we ever mention. I don't think anybody ever says gay in the entire film. I mean, it's kind of Keegan just is. And he walks into the story a gay man, and he walks out of the story a gay man. And if there's any problem with him being gay, it's in the subtext, it's in the background, and you can read it however you want to.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that too. Is that it's there, but it's not like a major. It's not an aspect. It's not a major aspect of the storyline at all. Like this, I could see this same storyline in any Hollywood film with any sexual orientation of any of the characters, right?
Yes, and Steve, I think that was one of the things too that you liked about the script as well.
Right, absolutely. It is a different world, and everybody's seen coming out stories and AIDS stories aplenty. And one of the nice things about this was, the character does in fact just happen to be gay, and so instead you're actually, for example, you see that much more of his life is wrapped up at the moment with patching up a really difficult relationship with his mother. That's actually the big deal, and no one cares that he's gay.
Yeah. And you find that his boyfriend is a badass, can beat you up if you're a bad guy, and you just don't expect that, which I think is also kind of cool in the story.
Yeah, and it's certainly refreshing because I mean, even well, sometimes even today, but like 20, 30 years ago, it's very like, over the top, stereotypical. If a character is gay, it's a very like, broad representation.
Yes, and some of those representations are great because there are people that are like that in the world, but most people, most gay people, most people in general, always run somewhere in between stereotypes. And in this one, just what I liked about writing this and what I've always kind of done in the stories that I've written is people just are. Some of them are gay, some of them are straight, and some of them are heroes, and some of them are villains, and some of them are somewhere in between. And that's really, in my opinion, really radical, a really impressive thing to do is just to show people as people, and they rise or fall to the occasion as anybody would, regardless of who they happen to love.
Right. Yeah, well said. Now, just going back a bit, I guess, for the casting process, had you known anybody beforehand? Was it a pretty tightly knit production?
I had worked with and so it's Steve. I'd worked with two of the people on the cast, Timo DeCamp, who plays Will, the boyfriend. I'd met him on Judas Kiss and was really impressed with his acting work, and actually rewrote the role of Will to accommodate Timo, and that was really kind of fun. And then Sean-Paul Lockhart, who played the Jake in The Dark Place, was in one of the short films that I made a couple years ago, two of the short films I made a couple years ago, and also in Judas Kiss. And I've known him for years. And he is just he's a really good actor, and so I wanted to have him in The Dark Place. And then go ahead.
And he is great as Jake. I just have to put in a little footnote on that. He is exactly the sweet and charming, but actually conniving and evil behind your back half stepbrother.
Yes.
And that was beautiful.
And he's such a sweetheart in real life. But Sean can just play basically anything. And you look at that face and you're like, oh my God. And then, it's a wonderful reveal when he becomes when he does what he does in this film. And that really helps just to kind of sell the villainy that's going on.
Awesome. Okay, so besides those two, then most of the other actors were through the audition process you were meeting for the first time?
Yes, Blaze Embry, Blaze Lippman, he was just a discovery. We had another slightly bigger name actor that was originally attached to be the lead, and that actor had to drop out over a conflict, and we were like, blah! And so we opened things back up. And then Blaze just kind of walked in the door and blew us away on the audition. And he nailed the character from the first time he read it, or from the first time he performed it. And he kind of had all of the right little pieces. I mean, he was able to bring this. You first are not quite sure if you like Keegan. I mean, some people don't like him when they first see him on the screen. And then as the story goes on and you start to see these other layers to Keegan, you realize, oh, I can empathize with this person. And Blaze brought those characteristics out of Keegan and allowed you to empathize with him and allowed you to see that there is this hero waiting inside of Keegan. If Keegan could just get over his own shit, he can rise to this occasion. And that's really wonderful. That's really compelling in this.
And, it really was an amazing find. The guy we had attached was not able to do the film because of public service he owed on a drug charge that came up at the last minute. And so we had no time to find anyone, really. And in walks Blaze and just nails it. It went from one moment of, oh my God, how are we going to do this, to, oh my God, this is better yet.
Yeah, because the lead is really important in something like this, and Blaze had all the right mixes, and he's a fantastic actor. He's a great writer, and I think he's even landed. I think he just landed a fellowship, a directing fellowship here in Los Angeles. So I expect big things out of him on the creative end.
Oh, that's great. Sorry, no, go ahead.
So I was on Blaze. I mean, we basically got him on his last acting gig, and he's been doing directing and producing with James Franco ever since.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He's quite cool. He's quite cool, and he's very arty, and he tells some really visually interesting stories on his short films, and so I think he's going to be a big deal in a couple of years.
I was going to say, I don't know if you guys have heard this one before, but when I watched him, he kind of gave me a Ryan Phillippe Cruel Intentions vibe.
Yes, he does kind of have that. He does kind of have that vibe in there, and he can play all of those things, and you kind of love him and you kind of hate him, and you kind of go, you are an exasperating human being, and yet. Okay, I'll go with you on this, and it's fun. I mean, I think in a story, you know, as it's typically in a mystery thriller, people doubt him, and you kind of understand why people doubt him. I mean, both for his hyperthymesia and for the fact that he's a prickly human being.
Yeah.
He's a very prickly human being with moments though, and definitely by the end with this really kind of open and loving nature, and he's a very wounded person, and that's fun. That's fun to see.
And while flawed characters are so much more interesting anyway, right?
They are. Now, it's tougher for some audience members to relate to that. But then other audiences, members that we've talked to just kind of really respond to that and go, goodness, I loved seeing somebody who had some layers and some depth to him, especially in what is essentially, I mean, it's essentially The Dark Place is a popcorn movie. And it's a fun film, but by throwing some of these layers in there and by not making things just as simple as ABC, it made for more attachment from the audience to what was going on in the story. So when we have the final show off at the end of the film, and it's not spoiling anything to say there's a final show off between the hero and the villain at the end of the film. You really kind of you're there. You're tied into this. You want him to win, and you're still not quite sure if he's going to be able to make it and save the day.
Yeah, no, and yeah, like his acting really comes together, and like everyone seemed to gel really well together too. So I mean, was there a long rehearsal process too, or no?
Very, very, very little rehearsal process involved. I mean, from the time Steve was able to lock in all the funds to when we could shoot, because we had a very narrow window to shoot because we were between big productions that were happening in Oregon. We shot in Oregon where our dollar went a little further, and we were able to bring in some top tier behind the scenes talent crew, that kind of thing, for a song really, but the availability of them is very narrow before the big productions start back up. So we had to shoot at a certain time, and we jumped in there and did that, and so that really played off. Plus, we were able to meet some local talent and people like Shannon Day, who plays the mom in this. She's really fantastic. So we were able to bring all of these people in and really make this thing happen.
Okay, awesome. Now, do you guys have any future projects you want to mention that you're working on, or something that's coming out soon?
Steve, I'll throw that one over to you.
Sure. So we're very excited about two longer-term new projects that we've got. But maybe I'll start with coming sometime late this year. We have a horror feature entitled WTF. And it's just kind of the straight up genre thing. It was a lot of fun and a kind of a great while we're hanging around project, working on the bigger ones, directed by Peter Harrow. So stay tuned for that. And we have a creature feature set in Beverly Hills. That we're looking to move up. We expect we'll have some real name stars in that one. And we've also we're very excited, we've got a book property out of Belgium. It's about, 9 novels in the series. They've been in the bestseller list in Dutch, Flemish, French for forever, pretty much ever since they've been published. And this is the father of Timo Descamps, who plays the boyfriend in The Dark Place. So his dad has written this great book series. It's a cross between Harry Potter and Doctor Who. And we're working on both a feature to introduce the book series as well as a television series that we're in negotiations with around Hollywood.
Yeah, so we have these big things that are kind of in play, and it just takes for freaking ever to get them off the ground, and that's both the fun and the annoying part of it too. So as we were waiting, we decided to produce Peter's WTF, which I think is going to be a fun little horror slasher film.
Sweet. I think I forgot to ask you, how long was from script to finished product for The Dark Place?
Well, because I pitched The Dark Place, I don't know, about 12, 14 years ago now. It was a long time process. There were a couple of drafts written in between, but I think the real thing for it is from the version that Steve read to the time that we shot. I think we were probably 18
9 months?
Oh, it was 9 months. It was 9 months. Okay.
Yeah,
because it was at the end of Judas Kiss that I gave it to you. You read it. It was great. And then when we budgeted it out and figured it out, I had to do a rewrite to make it shootable. So it was like 9 months from that to the time we actually shot. Yeah.
Okay. Well, fantastic, guys. Hey, I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to join me here.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
And yeah, good luck in your future career and your future projects.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.